Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. You're listening and watching DeProgram with John Kiriakou and me, Ted Rall. Today is Wednesday, June 4th, 2025, and it's never a slow news day, and this is no exception. Right before, and we haven't even talked about this, just minutes ago, the news broke that the Department of Education is stripping Columbia University of its official accreditation, meaning that effectively an Ivy League school will have the legal status of like a beautician school.
Yep.
It's
Expect a major lawsuit to be filed at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
No question. Yeah, the Columbia's teams of attorneys are currently working. They will be up all night. It will be. I mean, I assume that a judge would issue an injunction because it could literally. No one's going to attend a school that's not accredited. If it's not accredited, it can't issue a degree. It's a meaningless piece of paper.
Yeah, that's right. And the reason why the Department of Education is doing this, they say, is that Columbia has done nothing to stop campus anti-Semitism. Can you imagine?
Well, it's so completely like reverse world, right? It's like Spock with a beard. Right? Because this university has it's an alternate universe, right? There's no reality here at all. Every time I read every article about alleged purported anti-Semitism related to the Gaza movement. And I'm always frustrated because it's always like, well, I felt uncomfortable on campus because when I approached some protesters to tell them about why they shouldn't be doing that, they refused to talk to me. I'm like, that's not anti-Semitism. That's refusing to escalate and start a fight. Yeah. And so anyway, the thing is, Columbia University, they have fired faculty, they have suspended students, expelled students, stripped graduates of their degrees, cooperated with ICE on campus, banned Jewish Voice for Peace and several other campus organizations, blocked off campus, prohibited demonstrations, all focused on pro-Palestinian protesters. There has been no credible allegation of anti-Semitism in that giant, which by the way is bizarre. I would expect to just be able to go anywhere randomly and find some anti-Semitism, but this apparently seems to be the one place where there is no anti-Semitism. And they, and it's like, I don't know what's in people's hearts, but there's no public displays. And then they're like, okay, so then if Columbia should be attacked, it should be for their vicious oppression of the Palestinian movement.
That's right.
But instead, they're being accused of not oppressing it enough. It's insane.
It's nuts. Yeah, it's nuts. And why do you think the target is Columbia? Why is it not Harvard or GW, which had a tent city during the protests, or Yale or some other school? What's the beef specifically with Columbia?
Well, the only thing I can think of is the history of the protest movement. The encampment structure began at Columbia, and then it spread from there. That seems to be the only thing. There's some dime store psychologists who say that, Trump resents Columbia because they never admitted him or whatever. Yeah. He went to UPenn, transferred to UPenn instead. I don't know if I believe that. I don't believe Trump's like really that petty, or I don't know. I think it must be like we're going to the heart of the beast. This is where it started and it's spread from here. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that has to be it. And he is attacking Harvard, not specifically on this issue, but Harvard is taking it on the chin, just like Columbia is. But I think you're right. I think it's because this originated at Columbia, and he's going to make an example of Columbia so everybody else can see what could happen to them.
John, maybe it's also Harvard versus Columbia. Harvard is going after a whale, right? The oldest school in the United States, dates to 1630. The Pilgrims founded it. It's like, it's a colonial era school. So is Columbia, but just barely 1754.
Right.
But Harvard is, it's kind of like how there's Howlin' Wolf and all other Mississippi Delta blues singers. It's like there's Harvard and there's all other schools, including Columbia. And Columbia is like, it's in New York. It's like, oh, it's a symbolism of like urban defeatism, liberalism.
Yes.
I'm thinking that that's those things all play into it.
I think so too. I think that's what it is. Are you surprised at all that that Trump is pushing things this far?
Yes. We expected that he had learned a lot from his first term, and that things were going to be a lot more radical when he had nothing to lose, couldn't be reelected in a second term. But John, I'm absolutely astonished at how far things have gone so quickly for, not just this story. I mean, we could just do, we could do the show for 20 hours and just bring up examples. But like one of them is this entire family of the suspect in the Boulder, Colorado terrorist attack against, the pro hostage protest demonstrators, a bunch of old, people peacefully protesting. They want it's an incoherent political movement, but the point is they were doing nothing wrong. They're doing something fundamentally American, which is expressing themselves in a public square. And they were viciously attacked by this crazy, we were going to say illegal immigrant, but, basically anti-Zionist person. And the point is that this guy's here, he overstayed a tourist visa and then a work permit. And his family, however, has legal papers. They're here legally. It's a wife and 5 kids whose lives have probably got real crappy real quick.
Oh yeah. Without a doubt.
They by all accounts, according to the authorities, they cooperated fully with the police and told them everything they knew. Nevertheless, the Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and others, including the White House website, have been gleefully crowing over how they're going to deport expedited fashion that's probably illegal, considering their status. Within 24 hours, they may already be gone to deport the entire family.
No, about 20 minutes ago, a federal judge issued an injunction.
Oh, good.
And ordered that they not be deported.
Well, let's see if the administration ignores that.
The administration may just deport them anyway and say, what are you going to do about it?
Right. That's what they've been doing. So like, but I mean, that's great. But it's still like, I mean, I'm sorry. Okay. I don't jump to Nazi comparisons with Trump. I'm going to do that here. Retaliating, my grandfather was in the French Resistance. One of the things you had to worry about, and his family was always on the move, was that the Nazis would come, the Gestapo or the Milice, which was the Vichy, basically collaborationist militia, would track down the family and kill them. Here we go, retaliating against the family, particularly when they're cooperating with you, which, by the way, might make them stop cooperating, right? So that seems like a mistake too, tactically, if you're kids. Yes. It's really, really evil. I have to say, it's wrong. I mean, I've been looking at reactions online. Even a lot of MAGA world finds this goes too much. Far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's wife and 5 kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to agree. That's really
extreme.
It's too much for a lot of people to take. Yeah.
You don't, it's like you don't go, even in political cartooning, it was considered mean to make fun of Amy Carter. Don't go after the family. It was mean to go after Jenna Bush, wrong to go after the family. So like, and then, that used to be a free fire zone. I didn't always follow that rule, but yeah, no, I mean, John, we haven't even been in office. This administration's only not even 5 months old. I mean, they have 3.5+ years to go. I mean, I can't even imagine what the end of 2026 looks like. I have no idea.
I wonder if any elected Republicans on Capitol Hill will be willing to challenge Donald Trump even after the midterm elections. I think they're so afraid of him. They're so cowed that they just do as they're told. Look at this big, beautiful bill,
Mm-hmm.
for example. Well, you know what? Let's talk about that for a minute, because today Elon Musk came out swinging for Donald Trump's face. There's been a complete 180 between Trump and Musk. And Musk said this is the worst bill that has ever been written. It's going to add trillions of dollars to the national debt. It's going to collapse the economy. The truth is, well, assuming all that's true, I think it probably is true. One of the things that this so-called big, beautiful bill does is that it ends a lot of the incentives that Congress had set aside for people to buy electric cars. And those incentives have resulted in billions of dollars in Elon Musk's pockets. So apparently the $444 billion that he's worth right now isn't enough. He needs more. And so he came out swinging against Donald Trump today. And I saw on CNN that this took the White House by surprise. They didn't expect this. You know, if he was going to be opposed to the bill, they would have expected that he pick up the phone, call the president, and say, "Hey, I'm not sure I like this." And so that is not what he did. He is spoiling for a public fight with Donald Trump. It's been a surprise to me. Now, talking about the deficit. Well, of course it's going to add to the national debt, not just the deficit. Of course it is. Over the course of 10 years, it's going to add $2.6 trillion. Those are numbers that come out of the Congressional Budget Office, which is nonpartisan. It's a bunch of nerds.
Numbers for sure.
Yeah, it's a bunch of nerds and eggheads who do this kind of thing for a living. And we're very quickly getting to the point, or perhaps we've gotten to the point, where at 110% of GDP, we're just not going to be able to pay the interest on these government bonds to finance the debt and pay for defense and pay for Social Security and everything else. So I think Donald Trump is getting himself into a pickle here. I don't think he cares. I think he'll just blame Democrats somehow. But, you know, the last time there was a balanced budget and the national debt was actually cut was under Bill Clinton.
That's correct. He did that. He did pay down some of the debt. I mean, you know, I think psychologically we're sort of looking at a financial version of Malthusianism, right? Which is the theory that the Earth has too much population to be able to support human life. And you know, Thomas Malthus came up with this idea in the late 1700s.
Yeah,
and he predicted by 1800, game over. Obviously, that didn't happen. And the thing is, though, but maybe he was just early, right? And we won't know until it's too late. You know, now that we have 7 billion people on the planet or more.
Right.
So this could be the same thing. When will we know that it's gone too high? I mean, we'll know when it's too late. I mean, it's just this. It's like sleepwalking. It's all good until you fall off a cliff. And I don't know. It is super interesting. What do you make, John, of the fact that there are members in MAGA world of the Republican House of Representatives who are saying now they're complaining that about various aspects of the bill that they voted for that they were unaware of? And you're not going to hear me say these words very often, but Marjorie Taylor Greene made a
I know, right?
She said, look, it's over 1,000 pages. And here's the important part. And they were changing everything until the last moment before we voted. So there was no way to read it all. She's right. And there should be, honestly, a parliamentary procedure that says that a bill the vote can't take place until, say, 7 business days or whatever you want to say. Right. After the final text has been approved. You shouldn't be able to ram through amendments 5 seconds before a vote. I mean, it's not reasonable. I mean, also, it's hilarious to see Democrats complain about, making fun of Republicans for their second thoughts, because they all voted for the USA Patriot Act that they themselves didn't read, and neither
That's
did the
right.
Republicans. They do this all the time. It's not LBJ who famously memorized every piece of legislation and could walk into the Senate cloakroom and buttonhole one of his colleagues and say, hey, John, could you, section 17, subparagraph D, can we strike that parenthetical? And people are like, what? I'll have to look that up. He knew everything. Those guys are long gone. Nobody in Congress does that. At most, they have staff read everything and summarize it for them. But, I mean, I guess my point here is if there's regrets on the House side, and, it passed by one vote, so any regrets means it would have not passed. Marjorie said she wouldn't vote for it if she had to do it all over. Not about the bill, not about the deficit, but about another issue. What is going to happen in the Senate? I mean, the Republican margin is higher there, but there's got to be Republicans who are torn between their loyalty to MAGA world and not wanting to piss off the president, but also thinking about the midterms next year, possibly presidential ambitions once Trump is gone. And, they've got to be thinking a lot of the Republican base really doesn't like this staggering amount of debt. And they also probably won't like the work requirements for Medicaid, because it's going to affect them disproportionately.
Sure. I saw an interview this afternoon with Senator Murkowski of Alaska. And she's an anti-Trump Republican. She's long been anti-Trump, and she said nothing good about this bill. But you're right. The Republicans have a much bigger margin in the Senate than they do in the House, and budget bills are not subject to filibuster. And so the Republicans only need 51 votes. They have, 53 or 54? I think they're going to have
3. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they're going to have an easier time in the House than they do in the Senate. Now, with that said, expect the Democrats to be unified, both in the House and in the Senate. But the Republicans can only lose a handful. They can lose 3 in the Senate and 4 in the House, or 3 in the House.
They'll lose the 2 that you mentioned.
Yes.
Collins and Murkowski. Those are a little bird that flew away.
Yeah.
They threaten to do this.
They do. And then they fall into line.
But this time,
which is very frustrating.
I think this time they can't vote for it.
Yeah. I wanted to say, too, how it was always my experience when I was on Capitol Hill that nobody reads those bills. None of the members read those bills. And then they'll give you an excuse, which is kind of a good excuse for a minute. And that is, well, the whole bill is going to get changed in conference committee anyway. And as soon as it's reconciled, it's going to be a completely different bill. Well, yeah, but then it goes straight to the floor of both chambers for a vote. So you don't have time to read it then either. So you have lobbyists writing these bills, staff summarizing the bills, and the members not even bothering to read the bills. And it's those bills that become law that we have to live our lives by.
And John, you're not exaggerating. When you say lobbyists are writing it, I think a lot of people think that what we mean by that is lobbyists are very influential.
No, lobbyists are. I told the story on a podcast the other day.
They cut and paste it, right?
Yes, they do. I told a story on a podcast the other day that when I was working for John Kerry, he told us he wanted us to write a carbon credit bill. It had nothing whatsoever to do with the Foreign Relations Committee, but he was the number 2 on the Finance Committee, and that was his interest, carbon credits. So, I don't know anything about carbon credits, and neither does the guy sitting next to me or the guy across from me. And so I went into the office one day, a Monday morning, and there's a guy sitting in my desk. And I said, who the hell are you? And he said, oh, I'm the lobbyist. I said, for what? He said, I'm going to write the carbon credit bill. I said, I thought we were writing the carbon credit bill. Nope, I'm writing it. And it wasn't just him. It was like 5 other lobbyists. I made him get the hell out of my desk. But they took over a good chunk of the office. They wrote this carbon credit bill, which failed, by the way, in committee. So it was never passed into law. And, that's when I realized that staff writes none of the legislation. Now, I got a master's degree in legislative affairs just so that I could someday work on Capitol Hill and write legislation.
But there's no such job.
No.
Well, you should have become a lobbyist, John.
I should have. I wouldn't be in this rental house right now if I had been.
So what do you think about the Musk factor? Is apparently he's he's gotten dragged on social media, but it's having an effect. It's got to be.
It's got to be, because he did it publicly. If he had called Mike Johnson or whoever at the White House is the head of congressional liaison, or the White House political director, and said, listen, you guys really have to stick this credit for electric vehicles back in. That's not what he did. He called Fox News and he said, this is the worst bill I've ever seen in my life. It's the worst budget in American history. It's going to put us in bankruptcy. Why would you do that? Unless he had already been turned down. I don't know.
But also, Elon Musk is an impulsive person.
He is impulsive, and he gets himself in trouble. How many times has he been investigated by the SEC because he'll tweet something that he thinks is cute, and instead it manipulates stock prices, and then there's an investigation.
Yeah, like the 420 thing.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
That's a whole story. We've got a lot to get through. Let's talk a bit about. Let's move on to Iran a little bit. The U.S. So we're seeing some progress, apparently. The U.S. had opened the negotiations, said that no way, you're not going to be allowed to enrich at all. Now the reports are, well, actually, you can enrich a little bit, somewhat. Now we're, it's kind of like the old joke about the prostitute. Like, now we're just negotiating the price, right?
Yeah.
So now we're just negotiating the enrichment percentages. And at the same time, Iran is saying, you're not asking for complete removal of all sanctions, although I'm sure that's what they would like, but they're asking for sanctions relief, which I think is obviously an extremely reasonable ask, considering sanctions should be illegal. It looks like something might get done.
Here's the sticking point. The sticking point is the actual enrichment. So the Iranians want to enrich uranium, which is their right. Every country that has the ability is enriching uranium. They used to enrich it up to 35%. Now they enrich it up to 67%. It needs to be like 95 to 97% to be weapons grade. They haven't done that. So on the one hand, you have the Iranians saying, we want to enrich uranium. On the other hand, you have the Trump administration saying several different things. First, they said no enrichment whatsoever. Then they said, you can enrich, but only up to 35%. Then they said, no, you can enrich up to 67%, but you have to leave it in another country. Let's put it in the United Arab Emirates. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of days ago, the White House said, well, they can enrich the uranium, but so can the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, the Qataris, whoever else wants to, the Emiratis, and then we put all of it in Oman. And then the Omaners are like, wait a minute, we don't want any of this in uranium in Oman. We never offered that. Oh, okay, we'll put it in the United Arab Emirates. And then the Iranians are like, but we rejected that a month ago. Let's move on. We're not going to enrich it to weapons grade, but we have the right to enrich it for nuclear power. It's our uranium. And that's where they're stuck. Now, my guess is because the U.S. position changes literally weekly, that means that it's Trump making the call. And I think if Trump allows the U.S. delegation and the experts on these issues, the DOE people, Department of Energy people, allows them to figure out what's in the best interests of the United States from a security perspective, I bet we could come to an agreement. I bet we can.
Let them do their job.
Let them do their job. And I have to, yet again, compliment the Iranians on this, that they've been very level-headed. We're seeing the Iranian people protesting the fact that the Iranian government has been so patient. That's amazing to me. Just amazing.
Well, they have been. Now, let me ask you about the Iranian. What do you think? What's your assessment of what the Iranians are up to? You mentioned that they're enriching above the level required for nuclear energy.
Yes.
They're moving toward, but have not really gotten close to the level necessary for weapons grade. So is this, I see it as, maybe there's more than two possibilities. I see it as one of two things. This is a way for the Iranians to pressure the Americans and say, shit or get off the pot, or we're going to 95% fuck you.
Right.
Or they literally are lying and they're saying we're going for the nuclear weapons program.
Or they're doing this just in case the Israelis pull a fast one and start bombing them, that they can get up to 95% far more quickly than they could from 35%.
Because if you're Iran, Israel is your number one, more than the U.S., existential threat. Israel has a...
Absolutely right.
They're after you. They have a hard-on for you. They want you gone.
I think that is it right there. It's an existential threat. It's one that I think most Americans don't fully understand. And then conversely, it wasn't lost on the Israelis that those slow motion drones that the Iranians sent, 7 of them actually made it through the Iron Dome.
Yeah, and that's after the warnings and the deliberate.
Yeah, when they said, oh, by the way, we're sending these drones, we're going to bomb you. They're not going to get there for 6 hours. And the Israelis put up the Iron Dome. They're like, okay, here come the drones. And then 7 of them still got through.
I mean, presumably technicians on the Israelis, on the IDF have been working to fix those problems.
Yes.
But, you know, I mean, my father, who was an aeronautical engineer, explained missile systems, right? There's missiles, there's anti-missile missiles, there's anti-missile systems.
Crazy.
Nothing's foolproof. I mean, you know, you don't really know until you're at war. Like one of my favorite factoids that he said is, we don't know if on Doomsday, those guys go in and turn those 2 keys. We don't know how many of them will launch. We don't know how many of them the telemetry will guide them to their destinations. We don't know how many of those will detonate. We don't know because we can't test them. It's like building a car in your driveway, but you don't get to start it.
You know, my dad used to tell me this story when I was a little kid. My dad was in the Army, was drafted in like 1959, right? He hated every second that he was in the military. And he ended up being stationed at Fort Knox, but at first he was at Fort Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. It's in central Pennsylvania, which is all farmland and mountains. So he said that one morning, early, like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, these alarms went off. This voice over the loudspeaker kept saying, this is not a drill. This is not a drill. Everybody jumped into the Jeeps. They drove out into this farmland. And then he said, like watching a movie, the earth just lifted up and moved aside, and these missiles came out of the ground in central Pennsylvania. And then they said, this was a drill after all. The missiles went back in, the ground closed back up. And he said he would never forget it as long as he lived.
So chilling.
Yeah, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. We just don't know it.
Thousands.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, honestly, they should be eliminated. I mean, really. I mean,
You're right. We don't know if they'll launch. And if they don't launch, do they explode in place?
Right.
We don't know. They haven't been tested.
Although probably not, right? I mean,
Yeah.
well, they could, but I mean, probably not because of the detonation thing. People don't really understand. Like if you bombed an ICBM in place, the most that it does is create like a dirty bomb. It doesn't. You don't get a mushroom cloud.
Right.
Because the detonator hasn't been activated.
Right.
It's not like blowing up a conventional bomb, a dumb bomb.
No.
That makes.
I went out to Vandenberg Air Force Base once to take a missile course when I was with the CIA. I didn't know anything about missiles. The White House wanted a paper on the Iraqi missile system leadership. And so I had to go get smart on missiles. So I went out to Vandenberg Air Force Base, and I just happened to get there at one of the 6 times a year where they did a launch. They actually launched an ICBM. And it was a beautiful thing to behold. You know, it's nighttime and the thing is glowing, and then it takes off at this fantastic speed. It landed in the water outside of Tahiti 20 minutes later. 20 minutes to go from California to Tahiti. Incredible.
Oh, it's incredible. Right. No. Yeah, the military has stuff that we just don't understand.
No, and this is the old technology. This is the technology we developed in the 50s and 60s that we're still using.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the, I'm sure this has been somewhat upgraded, but as I think it was like 15 years ago, 60 Minutes did an expose about how at the bottom of the nuclear missile silos, the crews in many cases were still running computers with the big floppy disks, the big, I guess they were 8 inches or 9 inches. I forget the size of those.
I remember
you and I remember those.
Oh,
I mean, those were before the mini disc that,
Yeah.
And they were, they have the old codes. And I mean, it's crazy how old fashioned that stuff is. It's really, really antiquated.
Unbelievable.
Well, I mean, I hope so. What do you think? Do you think they're going to do you think we're going to get a deal?
I actually do. I do think we're going to get a deal. I don't think we're so terribly far apart. And
Bibi's going to be pissed.
He's going to be very pissed.
That might be a feature for Trump, not a bug.
Yeah, that's right. He's going to be very pissed. And I think Trump's going to be perfectly fine with that. Trump has been walking this tightrope the last month or so where he is staunchly pro-Israel, but he hates Bibi Netanyahu. And I don't think he cares what this does to Bibi Netanyahu. But I think that, well, we've said a million times, he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. It's going to be good for trade. He will have been the only president who could come to an actual agreement with the Iranians that both parties will approve of. And I think that deep down, Trump understands, like previous presidents didn't understand, that sanctions just don't work. They just don't work.
I mean, look at Russia. I think sanctions are like the best thing that ever happened to them.
That's right.
They now have a brand new, economic and military alliance with China.
China
dreamed of, that they went to war with.
That's right.
On more than one occasion.
Yes.
They, and BRICS came out of that. The R is Russia in BRICS.
That's right.
I mean, it's a huge thing. Wow. Well, let's hope so. What do you think the deal will look like?
Well, I think it's going to be baby steps. We're not going to see an announcement like we did with Syria, where he just on a lark opens his mouth and says, all sanctions are lifted. And there's going to be plenty of pushback from the Democrats, pushback from the Treasury Department, probably some pushback from the military, both civilian and military DoD sides. But I think that what the Iranians are interested in is, number one, spare parts, right? Especially spare parts for the oil industry. If they can get spare parts for their American jets, they want to do that too. Remember,
from the Shah.
They inherited all from the Shah.
What, F-111?
F-14s, F-111s, Boeing 707s. They need parts. They also need to,
a great market, but they'd rather get them legitimately.
That's right. And they need to dredge their harbors. They have trouble getting oil out because they haven't had the technical wherewithal to dredge their harbors. I think that's really what they're interested in.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens there. So, John, I have kind of a personal story here. I wanted to talk about Tom Girardi. Yes. I don't know. Were you familiar with him before all this happened?
Vaguely, yes.
So for people who don't know who Tom Girardi was, Tom Girardi was most famous for the Erin Brockovich case. If you watch the movie, Erin Brockovich is a sassy up-and-comer working class lady who basically turns herself into an attorney and ends up prosecuting Pacific Gas and Electric for polluting water and causing cancer spikes in Southern California, right? And to sue PG&E, but she works for a tiny little local firm, so they don't have enough. So at some point there's discovery, And John, you know what a document dump is. So when you take on a superior adversary, when you're like John or I, and you sue a big entity like PG&E, one of their tactics is to say, oh, you want discovery? We'll give you discovery. And a semi-truck pulls up in front of your law firm's office and drops off 150 bankers' boxes full of papers, 99.99% of which have no bearing whatsoever to your case.
Just all trash.
Just all garbage. And so you need people to go through all that, because what you need is somewhere in there. It's a needle in a haystack. So when the document dump happens, they're like, we need a big firm to get involved. We need to partner up. Girardi Keese. They go to Tom Girardi. Tom Girardi brings them over the finish line. They win hundreds of millions of dollars from PG&E. And I know the following story because I know it, and really other people don't know. But he got 40% of that. He then he was a flashy dude, funny, charming, like a bull in a china shop. He took the jury out on a cruise. He rented a yacht and took the jury out across the Pacific to celebrate and just get drunk together. Can you imagine? And so anyway, he then for other people who are into reality television, he married Erica Jane, the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills lady. Big age gap. She's I guess 47 or maybe 57. I don't know. And anyway, the point is, I don't know, about 50, I think. And he's 86 years old now.
Is he that old?
He's 86.
Geez, I would have said he was probably 70 or 72 by now.
Wow. So he's considered the king of torts in California. He has raked in billions of dollars in legal fees over the years. He has sued, he's won so many damage suits. It's crazy. So when I had my situation with the LA Times, for people, quick recap, 2015, I'm the staff cartoonist at the LA Times. The unbeknownst to me and my editors, the LAPD pension fund buys the controlling interest in the LA Times and the San Diego Union Tribune the year before. Nobody tells me, hey, the LAPD now owns the paper. Don't draw cartoons about the cops. Crazy. I'm a cartoonist. Of course, I draw cartoons about the cops and the police chief, whose name is Charlie Beck. And so in 2015, the hammer comes down on little Ted when police Chief Beck walks across the street, because back then the LA Times was across the street from the police headquarters. When I went to the cafeteria at the LA Times the first time, I was startled because it was full of LAPD officers in uniform. I said, oh, is there some kind of incident? No, it's like that every day. What do you mean it's like that every day? They use our lunchroom. Like, what do you mean they use our lunchroom? Yeah, they just started doing that. I'm like, what are you talking? They don't have their own places to eat. It's LA. There's lots of good food. Anyway, but the point is the relationship was like this. Beck walks across the street to the publisher, Austin Butner, who was hired as part of the LAPD takeover. Butner, who was a former mayoral candidate, billionaire, says, okay, I'll fire Ted Rall for you. And this is all court records, right? I'll fire Ted Rall for you. We'll smear him in the paper. No investigation. We'll just fuck him. And so I'm like, you could have just asked, lay off the cops. I would have said, sure. They just didn't ask, right? I'm not that much of a firebrand, but the cops were out for blood. Long story short, I sue the LA Times, and I'm trying to sue the LAPD for defamation, wrongful termination, violation of my First Amendment rights. I'm a fan of mine, close friend. He's like, hey, I know Tom Girardi. I'll introduce you. So,
oh my God.
So Tom Girardi became my first attorney. So,
oh my God.
So Girardi had an office on Wilshire Boulevard in LA. It was in a former beautiful 1920s or 30s bank building. He had the entire building.
Oh.
It was beautiful, luxurious. You've never been to a law firm that looked like this. And it was weird because there are only two partners, right? Actually, there was only one partner. Keefe was just like a holdover from an old partner who he had like bought out. The inside, John, you would love this. It was a museum of Central Asian antiquities.
Oh my goodness!
Probably the provenance of which, but I've never. I mean, I've been to every Central Asian art museum, the exhibit at the British Museum, all the ones in Central Asia. I've never seen anything that looked like this. The quality, it must have been millions of dollars worth of stuff. And so anyway, I'm taken back into his office. There's Tom, and there's pictures on the wall. This is a total power broker. There he is hanging out with Hillary and Bill Clinton and John Edwards. I'm like, oh, John Edwards? Oh yeah, he's my client still. It's like he knows everyone. Jerry Brown, big Democratic donor, player, power broker. He's the king of Los Angeles, right? And I'm like, I tell him about the case, and he's like, what the LA Times did is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, we will put them out of business. We will take, you're going to walk out, you'll never have to work another day in your life. 7-8 figures, easy, like fuck them. And I'm like, this is a guy who can do that. So he's like, let me make some calls to the LAPD and just see like what they're saying about some of the details. And I'm like, people? He's like, I know everyone. Wow. So he makes the calls. My story checks out. They're like, so he's like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And everything goes from total, like, it's all systems go. It's DEFCON 4. And then Lisa Bloom calls me because she's read about this in like the paper. It's been all over the news. It's all over cable, Fox, CNN. Lisa Bloom is the daughter of Gloria Allred, the feminist attorney.
Right.
Lisa Bloom calls and she's like, listen, I can't take your case. She's like, my model is I don't actually sue anyone. I call a press conference and I threaten to sue people and then they settle. And she's like, but this is going to be a war because and you've got the right lawyer, but you got to tell Tom, like there's a rule in California. If you're libeled by a newspaper, you have 20 days to file formal notice to the paper or any media organization. I guess this would be true about a website too. You only have 20 non-business days, calendar days, to file notice to say, you've libeled me now, and I'm going to sue you, or I'm not going to, but the point is I'm putting you on formal notice. You've libeled me. Here's the specific passage. This is why it's libelous. It's a terrible law. It's case law. And what happened is like this was like, actually, it's not case law. It's a law. And basically the newspaper lobby got it passed years ago when they were powerful. And, imagine if you were like on assignment for the CIA years ago and you're like in fucking Waziristan for like a month. And then, you've been libeled while you were gone. You wouldn't have any way. You literally couldn't do anything about it. Anyway, I tell Tom and he goes, okay, well, no problem. He goes, I'll take care of it. I'll file the notice. Days go by. I'm like, hey, what's going on with that notice? Oh, I'm busy with it. He slow walks it. We roll up to day 19. By this point, I'm like not sleeping. I'm losing my mind. I'm like, why haven't you done this? Finally, I call up my friend who introduced us and I'm like, Tom Girardi's fucking me. You've got to like yell at him. So he calls and yells at Tom. Tom's like, okay. I'll do this. He sends a lame letter, awful, not well written, half-assed, quarter-assed, but he sends it. It gets to the LA Times on day 20 at like 4:50. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Why is he slow walking my case? And then he goes cold. And we're not hearing from him. So long story short, I ended up having to fire him and getting new counsel. That's a whole story in and of itself. Years later, it all comes to pass that Tom Girardi is best friends with Chief Beck. And when I mean best friends, not like he can pick up the phone and Beck will return his call. I mean, they eat at the same restaurant twice a week.
Together.
together, and everybody knows it. And then, it gets better, John. So then, and then my case like works its way up through the courts. I end up in front of the appellate division, which is you start at the trial court, then you're at the next level. In California, you're at the appellate division. So at the Court of Appeals, there are 16 courts, divisions. And my lawyer's like, don't worry, Ted, we're going to kick their ass because 15 are really left. There's one real right-wing division. But come on, you're not going to get that. Guess what? So, and this is already after a bunch of things like this have already happened. Like my first judge says at the very first hearing, she's like totally like destroying the LA Times. She's a Latina from East LA, like AOC type. I'm like, oh my God, it's Team Ted all the way. And she's reaming the Times. She suddenly takes early retirement, like 3 months into my case. Poof. And you do a little property search. This little judge suddenly ends up with like a mansion in Malibu.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, huh, that's interesting. So anyway, things like that keep happening. Anyway, long story short, maybe it's too late for that. I get before the Court of Appeals. It's a 3-judge panel. Only one woman's talking. This woman, what is her name? Trisha. Oh God, it's like I think I blocked her name. Trisha something. She's the Bigelow. Trisha Bigelow. She's the appellate judge, and so she's like, I don't know. She's like, I don't know. What are you complaining about? Like, there's no case law that supports your position here. My attorney's like, such and such versus such and such versus such and such, Your Honor, here. And she's like, I'm not going to, and she goes in court, I'm not going to read these. What do you want? You expect me to read these? And he's just like shocked. And like literally there's like a, in the courtroom, right? So she fucks me. But it turns out there's a reason for that, because she was carrying on a sexual affair with Tom Girardi the entire period of my case, right? So she's fucking the guy who's noshing with the guy who I'm suing, right? No one's telling little Ted anything. He's just the dumb cartoonist from back east that no one gives a shit about. And so anyway, the point is, Girardi was like part of this lattice of corruption that goes, frankly, it goes all the way up to Governor Newsom's office in my case. And I can lay all that out. But the point is, what's happened here, as far as I'm concerned, is they got Girardi the way they got Capone on taxes.
Yeah, he got 7 years yesterday.
7 years, and like
he'll die in prison
because he knows everything about all of them. You know, he's Jeffrey Epstein of Southern California. He can tie all of the people I mentioned to Dr. Pat Soon-Shiong, current owner of the LA Times, biotech
billionaire
in there, who's made billions killing cancer patients with catch and kill schemes that got rid of effective cancer cures in favor of his shitty ones. Gavin Newsom, who made a deal with Dr. Pat during COVID to reopen hospitals if the governor would get rid of all litigation against Dr. Pat, which he did by corrupting the California Supreme Court in San Francisco. I mean, it goes all the way to Sacramento. And the level, I'm not from LA. I was, like you, I'm from the Midwest, and I've lived in New York most of my life. But like, I was shocked by LA is basically run like a small Mississippi town. And, it's not a real city, really, in terms of its political culture and its governance. And so there's no independence. There's no one who can't be corrupted. There's no one who's not taking a payoff. There's no one who's not collecting a marker. Everything and everyone is for sale.
My God, I'm so sorry to hear that. And if he's 86 years old and he's got 7 years now, and these are federal charges.
Federal charges, yeah.
So there's no probation and parole in the federal system. He's got to do. Yeah, he's got to do 7 years minus 15% for good behavior. So he's still going to do 5.5 years. This is a death sentence.
Well, John, he claims to, and I believe, I mean, to have Alzheimer's. I mean, he's been in a home all these years. I mean, look, obviously, I hate him, but I have to say he's a victim here. He should not have been put on trial. It's a waste of taxpayer money. He ripped off his clients. Like, basically, he'd be like, John, I won, congratulations, you won $7 million, but actually you won 50. That's a real case. And he pocketed the difference. A lot of people don't realize that, like, if you have an attorney and you collect a damage award, the money goes to your attorney. He or she takes out their share, and then they send you.
And then they send it to you. Yeah.
And so he took advantage of that to line his pockets. He had this mansion, John, that was one of those estates that was some people thought it was worth $100 million. It had to be photographed from a satellite or from a helicopter. It's just impossible to get a vantage point because it's so big, that where he and Erica Jane lived. I mean, the way this guy lived on his client money was crazy. And he could have made real money just playing it straight. I mean, he was telling me, easily $50 to $100 million case. And he's probably right. But, he was in deep. But I think the point is, the powers, as evil as he was, the powers that be that put him away are worse.
Yeah, right. Wow, what a story. I didn't know any of the details. I vaguely knew there was corruption involved in your case.
Oh, and that, I've only given you I mean, we don't have all the time in the world here, but I'm giving you that's the executive summary. I mean, there's more. There's definitely more.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
I mean, honestly, the whole thing was so mysterious because I was just, well, it's like you. I was just doing my job. I mean, and it's like, but thank you. Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I mean, all I have to say is, if someone who's close to Governor Newsom is watching, tell your guy, don't run for president. This will come out. And
it should.
Will come out. Yep. And if he's done this with, and also he got duped, by the way, by Dr. Pat. Dr. Pat never reopened any of those hospitals that he had closed, that in exchange for, in exchange for dropping all those cases. So not only is he corrupt, he's dumb. But Newsom is, I mean, because Dr. Pat's a snake. He looks like the nicest man in the world.
He does.
Nice smile, so sweet looking.
My God.
The Victorians had this idea that if you had a dark soul, that you would be physically ugly. Dr. Pat proves that that's not true.
Ted Bundy did too.
That's true.
Oh my God.
He sure did. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, so off to court he goes. I mean, off to prison he goes. He's going to. Do you think he's going to Club Fed, or is he so too bad? Or
no, it'll be easy for him. Club Fed, though, you sleep in a dormitory. You got 30 guys on bunk beds in this big room, TV blasting 24 hours a day. It's not. I always used to complain that there really is no such thing as Club Fed anymore. There are no swimming pools. There are no tennis courts. There's no chip shot golfing, driving range, whatever. All that stuff is gone. It's been gone since the Reagan administration. But the minimum security work camps have no bars on the windows. The doors are unlocked. You're free to come and go as you please. You're just on your honor not to run away. And it's easy. Life is easy. You might be sweeping the floor for an hour a day. You might paint an hour a day. You might work in the garden. There are always a couple of prisoners who drive. They'll take other prisoners to doctor's appointments, or, drive the warden to and from his house. It's easy. It's easy.
So, is there a gerontology unit that would
deal with
there are several. Alzheimer's?
Yeah, there's one at Lompoc. That'll be the closest to him. There's the biggest one is at Butler, North Carolina. There's one in Minnesota. There's one at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. There's one at Springfield, Missouri, but that's for the higher security people. And I think that's it.
Well, he only needs one.
Yeah.
Although he's the kind of guy who's always tried to have 10 of everything. But I think those days are coming to an end. John, do you want to answer this question from Josie F? He says he liked loved your episode on Tucker, but he's asking about your take on Putin.
Thank you. I think maybe I was misunderstood. I was objecting to the word avowed. I said that Hakeem Jeffries last week had said that Vladimir Putin was an avowed enemy of the United States. Well, that has a very specific meaning. Mm-hmm. It means that he took a vow that the United States would be his enemy. And he's never made such a vow. I said that there are no permanent friends. This is kind of a famous saying. There are no permanent friends in international affairs. There are only permanent interests. And that there were some things over which the United States and Russia could agree. Even in a time of war, we could agree on non-proliferation, on counterterrorism, on international narcotics or piracy. But my point really was that Vladimir Putin has never taken such a vow.
No, not at all. I mean, he would have had to say, I consider.
Yes.
We've certainly said, oh, China is our adversary. China is our enemy. I mean, I've never said that. I don't believe that.
No.
But
no, I don't either.
And, and the thing that's interesting is certainly, Putin was dying to be friends with the United States. When he was mayor of St. Petersburg, he made all the signs in the city bilingual, Russian and English.
I didn't know that.
Could have made them Finnish, right? Because it's right next door.
Yeah.
Didn't. And they still are. He asked, we've talked about this. He was like, hey guys, can Russia join NATO?
Twice.
And
twice.
Like,
mm-hmm.
Actually, this club is an anti-U club.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you can't join the anti-U club because then it would be pro-U. So yeah, I mean, he definitely wasn't. And I think he's probably, obviously he's a very, I think, clear-headed man. And he recognizes reality and he deals with reality.
Yeah.
Real politics is his thing, right? But he's not. I mean, is he? I don't know. I hate the word enemy. I'm old school. I say no country is another country's enemy.
Yeah.
Unless you have a formal declaration of war.
I agree. And Hiram Stout, thank you for this name. I am going to do exactly that. Clara Mate. Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm actually looking for people to put on Deep Focus. I appreciate the note. Thank you.
Go ahead. Why don't you pitch Deep Focus and explain what the Deep Focus is?
And you should do the same with yours. Both Ted and I have other podcasts that we have been doing too. I have one called Deep Focus with John Kiriakou, and I try to go. It's more newsy in that it's just one issue. It's one interview, and we try to go a little bit deeper into it. And Ted, you're doing one with Manila Chan.
That's true. TMI show Monday through Friday.
Yep.
And I have a podcast with my friend Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune.
I did not know you were still doing that.
That's only once a week, though. It's the DMZ America podcast. It's a different thing. Yeah, so that's more two guys shooting the shit about this and that. But we're besties. It drives all of our friends crazy because he's a conservative and I'm a lefty. And they're like, you're friends with him? That was going to be the name of a book if we could ever get anyone to publish it. I still think it would do well because we're kind of people like, how can Americans get along in such a polarized country? Scott and I can do it. We started out hating each other. It's like if we can do it, anyone can do it.
You know, the first time I was ever on Tucker Carlson's show on Fox, it was ages ago, years ago, and he made a comment where he said, you and I probably disagree on 95% of the issues, but we agree on whistleblowing. And I was on his show Monday. It was released today at noon.
Congratulations.
And I asked him if he remembered saying that. And I said, actually, now that we know each other better, we probably agree on 95% of the issues. Yeah. But I said, I don't know if you've moved to the left or I've moved to the right, but really, I do know that line is not straight. It's a circle. And we're at the point where the circle meets. Yeah. And Eric asks where the other podcast is available. It's right here on YouTube. So it is Deep Focus with John Kiriakou. Thanks for asking.
Just do the search for John's name. That I know it's a Greek name. It's hard to spell sometimes, but
sometimes it is.
Just think of the Kiri, K-I-R-I, and it'll all autofill.
That's it.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back Saturday at 12 noon Eastern time. This is our new schedule, 5 p.m. Wednesday Eastern time, 12 noon on Saturday. Please buy my book, What's Left. And thanks everybody for listening. And we'll see you soon. Bye.